So, very good afternoon to everyone present in the session. I welcome you all to Sir Dr. M.S. Gosavi College of Pharmaceutical Education and Research, Nashik, in association with Association of Pharmaceutical Teachers of India (APTI), organizes 1 week international e-FDP (e-STP) on recent advancements in pharmaceuticals, academic, research, ethics, and a social perspective under the aegis of Internal Quality Assurance (Cell IQAC) of the college. So I'd like to welcome everyone and our speaker for today, which is the third session, Mr. Vijay Mardane, sir, who is a Group Manager, Technical Operations, Singapore, and he is going to deliver a seminar on regulatory affairs and compliance and APAC perspective. So, to tell you something about Sir's educational qualifications, Sir is a Master of Pharmacy specializing in quality assurance from Goa College of Pharmacy from Goa University. He has 19 years of experience in quality assurance, analytical, manufacturing, technical operations, as well as regulatory affairs. Sir is a global regulatory CMC manager at Novartis Healthcare. He was a global regulatory manager from August 2016 to March 2018. He was a manager at Teva Farm India Private Limited, Goa, from August 2012 to August 2016. He was an assistant manager at Mylan Laboratories, Hyderabad, from December 2008 to July 2015. He was a junior manager in regulatory affairs at Dr. Reddy's Laboratories, Hyderabad, from March 2008 to December 2009. He was also a PhD research scholar as well as a lecturer in pharmaceutics at NMIMS SPTM Mumbai from the period of May 2007 to February 2008. He was a research associate at Ratio Farm India Private Limited, Goa, from August 2005 to April 2007. To tell you something about Sir's awards and achievements, Sir is a gold medalist of Pune University in B Farm and a gold medalist from Goa University for M Farm. So I welcome you, sir, and I would request you to take the session and on regulatory affairs and compliance and APAC perspective. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome, and thank you to opportunity to deliver a lecture in regulatory affairs, especially in Asian landscape and compliance. So today's topic, I would like to give the insights that what regulatory affairs looks like, how the drug development happens, and the role of regulatory affairs across the all areas of the drug development till its approval phase. And I would, since the topic or the theme of this today's session or the discussions is to have the advancement happening in the pharma industry. So I would like to also give a brief upon how Asian landscape works in terms of regulatory affairs and what are the basics steps taken by the Asian community to have the improved regulatory, you can say as a coordination, collaboration among the countries, and which will helpful to the pharmaceutical industries. So let's begin with, so I would like to take you back and to understand how the drug development happens uh, from the drug development till the registration stage. So I also seen that during the previous sessions you must have come across the different phases of the drug development, and I have seen that there are many speakers have talked about it, but just have a look at how it looks. So any drug which you see in the market, which you use to treat any disease, so that takes a lot of time to come in market. And it's, if you see the new drug development, as on date, it comes like almost 15 to 20 years because it has a lot of works to be done in background before it reaches to the patients. So the work happens in the R&D where the API, maybe synthesis of the API, new drug molecules, the characterization of the API, then finding the API which is suitable for the pharmaceutical use. That means to identify its intended purpose or intended use to treat a specific disease. So this drug is synthesized in the API laboratory, you can say, and then it moves from the R&D. Once you have the drug is ready, you have done some studies, then you move to the submission batches, which is for the regulatory registration purpose. On this submission batches, you perform in vitro studies, in vivo studies, clinical data. So most of the information is generated. In subsequent slides, I will take you through briefly on how this development happens and what are the key phases of this development. And once your data is ready, then dossier compilation is performed by the regulatory affairs team with the help of technical affairs team or technical operations team. And then this dossier goes to the regulatory authorities, which is called as dossier submission phase. So this phase is very critical, as in this phase, the different regulatory authorities where you are submitting your dossier or intended to submit your dossier start review, and they will come back with questions, queries, and then as applicant you answer those questions. After your satisfactory questions, the authorities approve your dossier, or you can call it as application in different countries. And once it's get approved, you get permission to launch or to market that particular drug into that respective territory or respective markets. However, once you launch the product, it is always possible that there might be some changes happening in that particular product in terms of this changes in terms of manufacturing analysis. So those have a provision from the authority is called as post-approval maintenance, where you have to notify authorities back and submit your dossier or post-approval changes. And again, the cycle of dossier approval happens, and then you can launch the change product. So in nutshell, this is a procedure from R&D to the launch. It's quite not so easy for especially new drugs. It involves a lot of time, as I mentioned, and there are different regulatory pathways, which are called a generic regulatory dossiers, or you can say reliance pathways. But in this session, I will limit myself to APAC perspective. So how it works in Asia. APAC, I am here referring is Asia Pacific specifically. So let's go through these stages, and maybe then we will go to the APAC. So as I mentioned, when you decide that you want to prepare any dosage form based on your patient need, or you got a drug dosage, then it's easy uh, to identify based on the need of the patient. Then you identify its dosage forms, whether it should go in tablet formulation, whether it should go in capsule formulation, it will go in injections. In pharmaceutical industry, we have so many dosage forms available, from single unit dose to the parenterals, large volume parenterals. So based on the patient need, you define your formulation, and this comes with lot of trials where you study different excipients, and then you use different formulas, and these formulas you need to define as the prototypes. Then you study whether it is working, whether it is stable, and all aspects you have to check in this particular stage. After your formulation is defined, means it's prototype design, then you finalize your formula. In this stage, you finalize your manufacturing process, as well as you manufacturing the dose which is required. For example, you are developing a product for the entire range from the child to the adult, then you will have a different dosage forms or different dosage strengths. You might end up with the suspension or small syrups for the kids, or you might end up with the injections or solid tablets, capsules for the adult populations. So this stage you will have a different formulation, as well as maybe different manufacturing processes suitable to respective formulations. Then stage comes is industrial development. So once you have the lab formula defined, then you have to commercialize the product, correct? So in commercial scale, it might be the huge quantity required in market in millions of the tablets or millions of the units. And then you need to have the industrial development. So you have to move your lab scale or the pilot scale batches to the big commercial scale batches. And then this phase is called as industrial development phase, where you manufacture your product at commercial scale. And to manufacture this product at commercial scale, you might end up with final tweaking in your formulation. You might have some changes in your process, because the equipment capacity is what you are using across the small R&D lab versus the commercial scale equipments are different. So in this phase, you will have to work with your technology to transfer from your R&D to your commercial manufacturing facility. Important things to be noted in this pharmaceutical development. This pharmaceutical development is based on your dose optimization studies, which happen in your clinical labs or clinical studies. So to give some brief perspective on what is dose optimization, so when you start your clinical studies, maybe you had lectures on clinicals, initially you start with a smaller dosage to check its efficacy or maybe its ADME profile, the pharmacokinetic profiles. And based on that, you come up with a dose, which dose is required in that particular patients to achieve the treatment of disease. And this is very critical. It is a thin line between some drug where it is efficacy versus side effects. So once your dose optimization study completes, then only you should go to the industrial development. Otherwise, it will impact your the timelines as well as finance, because you will end up with unnecessary investment in industrial development. So this is very important to note down here, that you need to have the your final dose optimization studies done in clinical trial before you go for really industrial development. Moving ahead, once your the formulation development is done, it is also crucial to identify your packaging material. The formulation development versus the delivery of that particular formulation to the patient, it involves a lot of different segments in the pharmaceutical industry, which called packaging development. Then you have supply chain, which actually carry your final product to the patient or to the warehouse. From warehouse, it goes to the retailer shop, and then from retailer shop, based on doctor prescription, it goes to a patient's hand. So drug from the lab travels till the patient has to travel a different scenarios or different areas or different temperature humidities, and to establish that we need to have a suitable packaging. And this is a very interesting and growing field as one did in pharmaceutical industries, as we have coming with a different competitive as well as very efficient packagings. So you have seen the common packagings comes as tablets comes in bottle pack, then tablets comes in the blister pack, then you have the foil packs, aluminum foil packs, you have syringes, you have then you have small vials for multi-dose injections, then you have this respiratory dosage which comes for the patients where they need to have the pumps to dispense those via respiratory tract. There are this is limited list what I'm presenting here, but of course you have many other options available for the packaging. Since packaging comes as an integral part, but this packaging comes in contact with the product. So there is a possibility that this packaging material will impact the product quality which is getting manufactured. So you need to understand what packaging material you are selecting, and then you test this packaging material along with your product, and this is called as stability studies. In layman language, it is just to check effectiveness of that packaging material without impacting the quality of drug product for its intended shelf life. So you want to give shelf life of your product for 24 months, then your product in that particular packaging material should be stable for that particular intended shelf life without having adverse impact on the quality of drug product. So this is how you select your packaging. This also comes with different trial and errors, as well as based on the cost, based on the rigidity, based on the transport requirements. For example, you are moving product from across the continents or across the oceans, then probably you need to have a sturdy packaging, the primary packaging, plus then you end up with secondary packaging, cardboards, corrugated boxes, then it comes with the shippers and other thing. So this is a very very crucial part in pharmaceutical development. And then once you have your packaging defined and you pack selected, then you generate the final stability in your industrial scale batches to establish your shelf life on the commercial scale. So this is all about, in a brief, how the packaging gets developed in industry for the pharmaceutical dosage forms. Let's move to the next part. After you have your product, now you know how to pack it. But the next part is very important, which is called as analytical development. So I'm taking you through these three different aspects where you have the product, you have its packed, and now it's very important that you need to prove that whatever you have manufactured is suitable for its intended use, and you can manufacture that particular product every time continuously with the same manufacturing process, with the same specification, whenever you manufacture that product in your manufacturing facility. And to establish this evident, you need to test your product, and the testing is required to develop a different quantitative methods. So these methods are a very important, very crucial, because those give you results which you can present to the health authorities, as well as it's an integral part of your quality systems. So how it happens, this development? So once you identify your dosage form, for example, you identify your tablet as your dosage form, then you need to perform its assay, impurities, dissolutions, or some other studies. Then you understand what methods you will require. Will you require spectroscopic method? Will you require HPLC based methods, or do you require GC based methods? Or then you need some other qualitative test to identify everything. And this all, once you identify your methods, then the laboratory people will start developing method. And of course, any method which is developed need to be tested for its suitability, and you have to validate that method. And it is called as method validation. So method validation is performed based on the ICH guidelines with the different validation parameters, and then you confirm that your method is validated and can be ready to use. However, now we need to understand that sometimes the method development laboratory might be the contract laboratory, which is not part of your own manufacturing site. In this context, the method developed at that particular laboratory needs to get transferred to the actual commercial site. So here it's like a development site is different, but actual the using site is a different. In that space, the method needs to get transferred from development laboratory to the actual site, manufacturing site, or you can say as a quality control laboratory of manufacturing unit. So you have to transfer the method, and there are some certain procedures involved in this transfer. Then, apart from this, there are key areas of the GMP compliances, which are the equipments what you are using for the instruments. Either you are using manufacturing instrument, you are using the analytical instrument, or you are using advanced characterization by using IR, NMR, mass, UV spectrum, whatever. The calibration of this instrument is very, very important. So when you calibrate your equipment or instrument, you prove that the instrument itself is capable to perform its desired testing, or what testing you want to conduct on that equipment, the equipment is qualified to do so. So this is called as calibration of equipment. So this analytical development is one of the crucial part, or maybe you can say it's an important part to generate a data to establish evidence that what you are doing or what you are performing in terms of manufacturing, it is supported by the results which is come from the validated and developed methods. And this is a very important data we need to submit to the regulatory authorities to get their approvals. So I'll go through that, what data we need to submit, and what are the at which section it has to go. So I hope you're following. Let's move to the next slide, which is the then again critical part which I was explaining you. So here I would like to take a little bit pause and go behind and explain you how the drug goes to the registration phases. So there are two, you can say in the broader perspective, you can say there are two regulatory pathways. The main regulatory pathways you consider as a new drug development, or NDA, new drug assessment or new drug application, where the drug is first time in the market. First time in the market means this drug has never been used in human being, or it's never been used in that particular country or that particular market. So then regulatory authorities will say this is a new drug, never been tested or never been used in humans in my country or globally. Then what evidence as a drug product manufacturer or as a company, as applicant, what data they can provide to the authorities to get a confidence that this drug is a safe, and at the same time it is efficient or efficacious, or we can say efficacy is proved. So for that you have to go through the different clinical trials, and I believe there in previous sessions you got some ideas about different clinical trials. So give you some nutshell experience, or to brief in small brief explanation, you can consider there are some lab studies happen. So these lab studies especially happen, or you can call as a preclinical studies. This phase is generally happen into the animals, maybe those are close to the human bodies. And in lab studies, it is established the dose, then the its safety, toxicological data, that is all the information gets generated in these preclinical studies. Once preclinical studies are satisfactory, then you can start to generate the data in phase one, but very um, few patients or few subjects, depends on the drug. So in generally those are 10 subjects you use for the study. In this study you start with your final optimized dose in animal studies and check the safety profile of that particular drug in those subjects. And this, to do this, before doing this phase 1 study, you have to take a permission from the authorities or different bodies which looks after the clinical trials. You have to say that, okay, look, authorities, we have done this product, we come up with this molecule, it shows so and so effect, we already tested in the animals and we are getting the good data which says that now we should start studying to the humans, and please allow us to start with phase 1 study. And then based on the authorities discretion, you get a permission to start your phase 1 studies. So you complete your phase 1 studies, and then based on your results on phase 1 studies, which you need to get concurrence from the authorities or your respective investigator, and then you apply for your phase 2 or phase 3 together, where you have the hundreds of the subjects involved in this phase 2 and phase 3 studies. This phase 2 studies or phase 3 studies gives you more data in the expanded form of the many subjects, which in turn gives you insight to provide evidence drug is safe and can be used for its intended use, or maybe it can treat the particular disease. So based on that data, now you are ready to submit your application to the authority. So based on the phase 2 and phase 3 data, you can start your application with authorities. However, this this goes data go to authority will review, approve, and you get a license to market the product. It doesn't mean that it end up your responsibility to stop testing or stop studying this product in the market. And this is called as phase 4b, sorry, where you actually study your, or you actually gather the data if there are any adverse effect, or any adverse event happen, or any complaints from the patients after you launch or market the product. So this keeps on going. So until the drug product is in market, you just try to collect more and more and data, and overall you will collect the data and to show that your product is stable, suitable for use, safe, and also have a proven efficacy for that particular intended use. So this is how clinical research works for that particular product. Now let me take you through the regulatory affairs. So as a regulatory affairs professional, then where it is involved, maybe I can put in other words, regulatory affairs professionals are the bridging body, or you can say as a bridge between the regulatory health authorities and the manufacturing or the company. So it involves into the actual clinical trial applications. So once your product is ready, then you do the clinical trials, then you submit your dossiers to the authority. Before that, if you need something to the discuss with authority, you get advice from the authority. So regulatory team can help you to have meetings with the health authorities with their briefing book, and you can have a conversation with the authority on your plan. So you can discuss upfront with the authority what is your plan to develop this molecule. You want your plan to generate so many studies, what will be your dosage, what is your formulations. So their regulatory authorities plays a role, and based on authorities' advice, you can design your clinical trials or your dossier registration documentation. So once your dossier gets approved, as I mentioned, you have post-marketing surveillance where you need to collect the data based on the product approval, and then you can keep submitting this information to the authorities yearly. Also important parameter is label and labeling claims as well as the validations. Label claims are the, you can say, actually the intended use in that particular patient profile or patient group. For example, paracetamol is indicated to treatment of the fever. So this is particular indication, and this only can be put on the label. You cannot put additional label of paracetamol. Paracetamol can be treated into the some other disease like diarrhea. Cannot be. So this is based on your clinical studies. You have to put the label claims, and these label claims are crucial based on your studies. However, apart from this, you have to also have the safety dossier to be submitted based on the clinical studies, then your safety assessment. An important part is major data goes under common technical documentation, which consists of different modules, and I will take you through those modules in just a brief on the later slides. Apart from this, regulator has also a important work to do is like advertising validations, and this is coming to be a new era or new area where patient versus the this is proven after COVID phase where people are in the house and lot of things happen digitally. So digital marketing came in picture. So your pharmaceutical industry, you have seen most of the advertisements comes from the TV, like paracetamol manufacturing companies provide their advertisement, painkillers, antacids. So those are coming onto the television. Plus there are some other products comes on the television, newspaper, and everywhere. However, regulatory bodies or authorities have a specific set of regulations on this advertisement also. So you cannot advertise or you cannot false advertise. And then you have to take approval on this advertisement also from the authorities. And this become little bit challenging after the COVID era, because if everything becomes digitalized and the regulations are established on digitalization, or what you are proposing in terms of the websites like social media platforms, as well as your different commercial, you can say commercial platforms where you can buy or sell your products. So this also comes in picture where you can see there are false advertisements are also happening. So this is also a different area where the as well regulatory bodies as well as the regulatory affairs professional as well as industries are growing, and this is a interesting field where you need to have a control, because some patients might take it in this particular product even though it's not intended for use and may end up with side effects or no effect at all. So this additional work, or maybe you can say as a profile for regulatory affairs. Moving ahead, uh, okay, this is just a brief background how drug gets developed, how the data gets generated, what are the different milestones: pharmaceutical development, analytical development, packaging development, then the different roles of regulatory affairs. Now I'm going to cover a main topic or main part of my presentation, which is Asian regulatory landscape. So ASEAN means currently the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So if you divide a world in terms of regulated markets versus non-regulated markets, or you can say developed countries versus underdeveloping countries. So US, Europe, Japan, those are the developed countries. And in terms of the regulatory requirements, also called as the developed countries. And they are very set regulations to register the drug product. And here US, the US FDA as well as European authorities and Japan, and they come together and form a ICH guidelines. You can say International Conference on Harmonization. So they harmonize the regulatory requirement. However, in Asia, there are so many countries, but each country has their own previous procedure to register the product. So Indonesia Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore. These are the main countries into the Vietnam in Asian region, and each country has their own regulatory requirements in past. If you take an example of Europe, even though Europe has around 28, 29 countries, they have the European EMA is governed, then we have member states, then we have different procedures to have a different registration pathways like a DCP, MRP, and so other, which allows to register product in one country and extend to the other country. But same mechanism was not there into the, or still not, it is not there into the Asian countries. So to understand how the Asian region forms and how they are taking different steps in coming future to have to reach to the stage where they have the regulatory bodies at par to the developed countries, as well as they have the procedures which can be used to have the facilitated reviews or reliance pathways. So let's start with this. So Asia, Southeast Asian Association of Southeast Asian Nations is called as ASEAN, and it is 10 member states. So initially it started with Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and Thailand in 1967. And then in 1984, Brunei also added to this Asian region. Followed by in 1995, Vietnam also joined this Asian. And later in 1997 and 1999, Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia joined. So now as on date, we have a 10 member state of this Asian body, or maybe you can say Asian Association of Southeast Asian Nations. If you see the graphical representation or the geographical representation on the world map, you can see this is Indonesia is one of the biggest, you can say, as having a lot of islands, along with Philippines closer to the China. Then we have the other countries like we have Singapore, Malaysia, then Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar. These all countries are toward the Asian, maybe you can say Southeast Asian nation. Just this is just representation for you to understand where they are located, and these all countries come together. Although it's quite in terms of geographically, they are distributed across the different oceans, and it is not like Europe in the closer continent. It's easy to have the, and plus the challenges in these countries, it's also have the different languages in each individual country, and along with different regulatory as well as different patient profile and different landscapes. So considering this region itself is have a diverse region, I can say, and the country's regulations of each country is developing at their own pace. So but now as on date, it's quite a lot improvement in this regulatory, and we with the group with after the Asian group forms. So what's happening now in this region? So in 1992, the Asian Consultative Committee for Standards and Quality, which is short form acronym is ACCSQ, is formed to facilitate and the complement of Asian Free Trade Area. So since the Asian, this even though it's a smaller, maybe I can say not smaller region, considering the Indonesia is quite one of the bigger country, still they to facilitate the trade, they are this committee forms, and this committee decided to have a lot of changes, a lot of agreements between these countries to get a better trade profiles, as well as reduce the technical barriers to trade among these countries. And this is not only the trade of the materials and goods, but this also trade of the medicines and the registration, different registration pathway. And they decided to have the, they started to take efforts in 1998 to harmonize regulatory requirements amongst Asian countries through this platform. So this platform helps, ACCSQ platform help to also harmonize regulatory requirements. So in 1999, this concept of Asian pharmaceutical harmonization was presented by Malaysia, and then it's agreed by the senior economic official meeting. So in the region, they have different meetings, and this meeting, this Asian proposal is given by the Malaysia, and it is agreed. And based on that, then they started to establish different areas, how they can come up together and do the harmonization of these regulations. And then they started to have the PPWG, which is called as acronym is Pharmaceutical Product Working Group. So they formed the group which started working towards the harmonization of regulatory requirements. And once they defined what is the requirement to be done, then they decided they form a implementation work group. So they align and then they decide or they agreed to form the implementation working group, that is IWG in 2002. And as a part of this, the topics they have taken that to have the ACTT development, ACTR technical guidelines, then regulatory capacity building, post-market alert system development, GMP inspection, MRA development, training scheme development. So these are the different areas which I have identified. So let me go through one by one. ACTD development means they decided to have their common technical documentation, uh, I can say common technical documentation, which is used to submit the dossier to the authorities. You can in Europe or US, it is also called as common technical documentation is CTD, which is term used by the ICH. However, in Asian, they come up with their own Asian CTD. Somehow it is similar to the CTD, but there's some minor differences in the data presentation. Otherwise, content-wise, it's remain mostly the same. Now they give the platform or they give the structure what documentation to be submitted, but then how industry will come to know what guideline to be followed to generate this data, and then they come up with the Asian Common Technical Requirements or ACTR guidelines, and these are the freely available on internet. So you can refer those guidelines, which tells you, okay, this data generation if you do, then it is acceptable in all countries in Asia, participating countries. Then there are also regulatory capacity building. See, these all Asian countries have different regulatory bodies, then different regulatory capacities. Even to say the regulators itself are growing up. The knowledge, the reviewers, the regulatory different bodies, their capacity, because it is governed by Ministry of Health and it is government body. So there might not be the enough capacity to review the dossiers, or then the all Asian countries they started working the regulatory capacity building in under this harmonization platform. Also, they decided to have post-market alert system development. This typical example is that if some drugs has any adverse event reported in one country, they also notify to the other neighboring countries on that particular drug. Maybe just cite one example. Recently, they have some cough syrups in the kids having some impurities, which leads to the kidney-related challenges in small kids. And this was a quite major incident in Indonesia. However, it has been reported to other countries to monitor the drug products registered in their countries. So this is how the harmonization helps each country instead of working individually. The all countries of Asians are getting benefited through this harmonization. Additionally, there is a GMP inspection development. And this is mutual recognition agreement. So what does it mean by that? When you have the GMP, so you manufacture the drug product, it's mandatory to have a GMP, that is good manufacturing practices implemented in that particular manufacturing. So from where it will come that it should have the common guidelines on the GMP. And for example, if I'm the applicant, I'm the manufacturer, and I'm submitting my product in all these countries, 10 Asian countries. Now, does it mean by if I submit in all country that all country will come and inspect my facility and all will get a report and then give me approval? No, this was quite challenging in the previously. Then they come up and make an agreement which is called as MRA, and those participating country in MRA acknowledge the inspection conducted by one of the Asian countries, and they recognize that okay, Singapore has evaluated this particular site and GMP is clear, then Malaysia can accept Singapore's approval. So this way, it reduces the burden on the manufacturer as well as reduce the burden on the regulatory authorities. And this is called as GMP inspection mutual recognition. Of course, then there is also training scheme development. Under this harmonization, the authorities among themselves have the training, so to upgrade their capacities, competency level at the authorities. And this is, you can say that ACTD is In 2006, 2005, this GMP, MRA, and task force, TF means task force, is established to do this. And in 2006, now the BAB guidelines have been established. So BAB guidelines are the bioavailability and bioequivalence guidelines, and the respective task force is implemented to harmonize the regulatory requirement in terms of bioequivalence. And now it's well established. So we have Asian bioequivalence guidelines in place, so that it is easy for the manufacturer applicant to perform the bioequivalence study. And this harmonization enables the faster registration process and to reach the patient as early as possible, get the medicines for the patients. And in 2009, the ACTD format has been implemented into the Asia. I hope you might have many questions on this. Please put your questions in the comments. Maybe you can address towards the end of this session. Let's move that this is important work is done by the Pharmaceutical Product Working Group, which is called as PPWG. And this is what is formed previously in 1999. And they have this responsibility to develop this harmonization scheme in Asia. So this group continuously meets together every year, and they have different regulations to be discussed. Most of the countries, their regulatory regulators participated. They come together, discuss the regulations, align with each other, and try to remove the technical barriers to trade, which is posed by the different country regulations. Of course, each country will have its own stringent regulations, but they try to come on the same platform or same page where they can find a midway, but without compromising product quality, efficacy, and safety. And this is the very important work is done by this PPWG group. So in Asian harmonization, the PPWG group played a very, very critical role, and still it's playing a very important, vital role. This slides look a bit busy, but let's to give you some insights how this PPWG work group how their meetings get conducted and who participates in their meetings. So if you see in this PPWG work group, there are different members like all countries or their delegates like Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, and all countries. And then they have their identified chairperson, co-chairperson. Also, they have these ACCSQ members. Interestingly, this is also they invite industry associations and experts. So it is nothing like that. Not only regulators are discussing this, the new landscape of regulatory and how to reduce the technical barriers. They allows industry associations to participate in discussions, and that gives industry association a say in the development of new regulations. So it is consulted back with industry association. Also, they invite different experts on the board, so they can give their comments, and those can be incorporated into the regulations. And this will end up as a win-win situation for regulator as well as the pharmaceutical associations, and help to have the common, or you can say the common ground for the new regulations. Then also they have the ACSC Asian Secretariat, and these are the other committees which also participate into the this PPWG group. So this is in summary PPWG. So it's very important and critical factor in Asian harmonization. Okay, coming back to the important part, which is what I wanted to explain you. In view of the time constraint, I will not be able to go in detail, but just to give you some hierarchical view how the dossier looks like and what is this common technical document in Asia, in this Asian country looks like. So this is called as Asian CTD. A stands for Asian, CTD is common technical documentation. Like in Europe, it is defined as a modules wise, module 1, module 2, module 3, module 5. In Asia, it is in part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4. It is nothing that this Asian country does not accept CTD. They insist or they request you to provide an ACTD. It's still acceptable, but CTD also they are paving way to accept the CTDs. So like countries Singapore, Thailand, They're still Philippines. They're open to accept CTD documentation because it's a global acceptable format. However, if you look into the different parts of CTD and ACTD, you can see the first part is very simple administrative data, which is about product label, then your product warnings, or maybe what is your product administration, dosage, the labels in your that particular country language, along with your introduction of the product. The part two is very critical in ACTD, which is quality document, where it gives the information of DS means drug substance, DP means drug product part. And then you have the part three, which is non-clinical document, which is a toxicological studies and toxicological data. And then we have the clinical documentation. So clinical document is the document which is your clinical studies. So this all information goes into the dossier ACTD for the authority reviews. In summary, part 2 is quality document, part 3 non-clinical safety data, and part 4 is the efficacy data. Now coming back to the GMP perspective, so I was explaining you that even though you are manufacturing in any of the country or across the globe, and you are intended to supply your product in Asian countries, then the GMP is very important. So there are technical requirements from the authorities, like they accept WHO GMP from your country. For example, your facility is in WHO, they will accept it. However, they will still have a say. They can come and inspect your facility. Then there is a PICS convention, Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention, and there are different PICS members, PICS countries. If your facility is inspected by either of PICS member, then that certificate is acceptable in particular country. For example, Indonesia is a PICS country, and if Indonesia inspect the facility in India and they issue a certificate in a facility in India, then that certificate is valid for the Philippines, because even the Philippines is not PICS country, but they trust the Indonesian GMP, and this is acceptable into the Philippines. Nevertheless, this is MRA, because the Asian countries within themselves, they have this mutual recognition agreement where they accept the GMP inspection from either of country in the region. This is what I was trying to say, that how the evidence of GMP is provided. So this is an important part in terms of the compliance. So you are manufacturing product, for example, you are manufacturing product in Thailand for Thailand, then it is called as locally manufactured product. Then the inspection will happen through their local authorities. For example, in India, if it is manufactured in India, the Indian authorities will issue the GMP certificate. Similarly, for the local manufacturer or local authorities will inspect the facility and issue the GMP certificates. This is very important to have the local GMP certificate along with other certificates to submit your dossier. So even though your facility is in country, then that respective country GMP is mandatory to have it. And then you can have additional country GMP certificates. For the imported products means I am getting the product in Singapore from the India. So my product is imported from India. Then I should have, or the Singapore authority should ask, or will ask WHO certificate for pharmaceutical product. This is an additional way of reliance pathway where authorities rely on the product registration in different country. So for example, my product is registered and approved in Europe. Take example in Switzerland. And now I present this certificate, which is called as CPP, to the Indonesian authority and say to them, look, my product is already approved by Switzerland, and the manufacturing site back in India is inspected by Switzerland authorities. And then I am eligible to register in a product in Indonesia. And this works. So the GMP compliance from the stringent authorities are acceptable in Asian countries. Stringent regulatory authorities means the authorities like US, Europe, Japan, Australia, TGA are called as stringent regulatory authorities. And those are defined by WHO in their regulation. What is stringent regulatory authorities? Then there are also additional products, like it's not only the drug product which is coming for the medicinal use, but there are drug products which are also health supplements and traditional medicines, which also in the market, like you have the vitamins, you have the supplements, you have some other dosage Ayurvedic formulations or some other things which you want to enter to this country. Then you have to rely on different product guidelines, regulations, plus GMP requirement, or maybe the food category and the food safety certificates, etc. So this is it for my presentation, and now I will open the forum for questions. Maybe you would like to have the organizers to come in.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we have one question.
Okay, please go ahead.
So, sir, you just go on your StreamYard screen.
Okay.
Is the question visible, sir?
This question from the Dr. Vandana Patel.
Dr. Vandana Patel, yeah. Please suggest
Yeah,
a good online course on regulatory affairs for PG students.
Oh, that's very good question. So as on date, I see the regulatory affairs course. Maybe it depends on the PG students level. I do not see any regulatory directly provided by the regulatory course, but there are some institutes, like maybe if you really want to do, I would like to suggest a little bit higher one, which is conducted by the RAPS, Regulatory Affairs Professional Bodies, and the RAPS is one of the society. They conduct this, they provide these trainings. They provide the trainings for the regulatory affairs professional, as well as those can be taken as the preliminary studies under the RAPS profile. Apart from this, I believe there are some maybe I sent some locally started programs which provide the regulatory affairs certificates, but I'm not sure whether those are authenticated as on date from my side. I'm not sure whether I will be able to answer your question on the PG student level, but RAPS is one of the good platform where regulatory professionals take the courses. It's RAPS, it's Regulatory Affairs Professional Body. And they provide the ratings also. They provide you certification which is called as RAC, and which is widely acceptable certification which you can use as a for your career growth. So that is quite a good certification. Okay, is there any more questions?
Sorry, sir. Sorry, I was on mute. Okay, sir. So I guess we don't have any more questions. Shall we wait for a minute or so till if anyone wants to ask a question?
Sure.
If participants wish to ask questions, they can pose their questions in the chat box. So, sir, I don't think there are any questions.
Okay.
So, sir, I'm immensely grateful for you for sharing valuable insights and expertise on the topic of regulatory affairs and compliance from an APSC perspective. Your passion and dedication to your field have undoubtedly enriched our understanding and have definitely inspired and ignited a motivation to delve deeper into the subject. I also would like to extend the gratitude for all the participants for asking questions and for listening to the session patiently and attentively. Sir, and I would like to give you, on behalf of all the staff and everyone of our college, I'd like to give this token of appreciation to you for this session. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, and I would also like to thank your college and the team to provide this opportunity to talk to young minds. And thanks a lot. And I wish you all the best and great success. Thank you.
So I declare that today's session is over. We'll meet tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. Thank you. Thank you, sir.